Well, good evening and welcome into a Tuesday edition of KC Sports Tonight. I am Mark Poulose, joined by the great Gabe Swartz here on this Tuesday afternoon. We got a five-pack of topics today. 5-spot up there on the board. The Royals back in town. Chiefs offseason availabilities, a draft wish list, Sporting KC, and the KC Mavericks. But, Gabe, we are going to start on the diamond. The Royals returning back home to Kauffman Stadium tonight for a 6-game homestand. They just wrapped up 17 games in 17 days. They went 2-8 on their road trip, which was actually the most losses they've had on a single road trip since 2021. 3-game set against the 4-17 Colorado Rockies, and then Houston coming to town. Gabe, my question for you here is, what would make this a successful homestand? Because for me, I really think the Royals need to go 4-2.
I think at least 4-2. I would say that they need to sweep Colorado. As crazy as that sounds, is that Colorado is far and away the worst team in the league, I think, in terms of, at least in the NL, and probably rivaling the White Sox in terms of worst team in the MLB. They've struggled to score just about as much as the Royals have, but they're not coupling it with starting pitchers who are going out there and putting up quality starts frequently. So I don't think that their 4-17 is nearly as close to being even just straight up average or bad. It's really poor baseball being played in Colorado. They don't really have a ton of stars. There's nothing that scares you about their lineup at this point. And you know it's bad when a team from Colorado that's getting the Coors Field advantage is not scoring runs. So bringing them to Kauffman, you've got Chris Bubic going, who's pitched pretty solid this season. I don't think you can even say that Michael Lorenzen hasn't pitched well. And then Cole Reagans, I think, is probably coming back to mound on Thursday afternoon, thinking, I didn't really have my best stuff against Detroit on Friday night. So he's probably wanting to put up a much better performance. I think that the Royals should get 3 from Colorado.
They need to, yeah.
And they need to get back on track, and then hopefully take 2 of 3 from Houston. So I would say 4-2 is the bare minimum of a successful week in Kansas City, and if anything, 5-1 would be ideal.
Well, just as you're saying right there, the Royals start to the season, they did play a lot of good teams. I mean, the Royals expect to be a good team, and they expect to play better than they did. But I think the note here is all 7 of the Royals' first series have been against teams that finished above 500 a year ago. Right now, the Royals standing at 9-14. So they are playing those good teams, and they're not even 500. So the Royals do need to turn things around. But the good news is it looks like the schedule is really about to open up for them. So only 3 of the Royals' next 11 series games are against playoff teams from last year. So it seems like if we're going to see the Royals turn it around, it's going to be here in the next couple days. I saw some media availabilities from Vinny Pasquantino before today's game. He said that he sucks so far. I know he kind of has a reputation as being the best soundbite in Kansas City, but I didn't expect him to be maybe so honest about his start to the season, just saying that he has been that bad. But we're going to have to see what happens there. One thing that really does worry me about the Royals, though, is last year the Royals were so good with runners in scoring position. I believe they were second best in all of baseball in runners in scoring position, and that allowed them to become a playoff team, to win a playoff series. And this year, the Royals, I think they're 26th best in the entire major leagues in runners in scoring position. So, Gabe, last year, my question for you, the Royals so good with runners in scoring position. This year, not so good. So even if the Royals got to league average with runners in scoring position, do you think this is a playoff team?
I think if they can get to league average, yeah. I think if the offense can just be in the 15 to 20 range, like right now they're 28th in batting average and they're like 27th or 28th in runs
down near
per
the
game.
bottom, yeah.
Yeah, it's not very good offensively, but if they could just be average, the pitching is good enough that they can win games. And the bare minimum of, they were winning games against the Twins in Kansas City a couple weeks ago, where they played a 4-game series. They won 3 of the 4, and they scored 9 runs in the 4 games. And so, yes, it was concerning for the offense, but it shows that they can still win those games. Now, ideally, you give your pitching some run support and you allow those guys to work more comfortably, because I think you can see it. The 4th, the 5th, the 6th inning, it feels like on the road trip, it's not like the pitching was poor. It was, if anything, the pitching was keeping you in games, keeping you in nothing games. The Royals were getting up 1-0, 2-0, and And then in the fourth or fifth or the sixth inning, the Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo gives up a 3-run home run on Saturday. Wacha ran into some trouble up 2-0 against the Yankees last week in New York. And if you could just get a multi-run lead or put a crooked number up for once, I think that the pitching would look even better, and there might not be as many cracks of, oh man, I got to go out there and pitch perfect. And I don't think that the Royals pitching staff has complained. You haven't heard sound bites from the clubhouse of those guys being like, man, it would be nice if our offense put up some runs, even though you probably know that they're thinking that. And so I think that 9-14 is not ideal. Specifically the records against the Guardians and the Tigers is not very good. But because they played so well against the Twins, they're not out of it. They just need to really go on a run at some point and offset the bad road trip with some really good play at home, which they did last year too.
Yeah, I was actually on my way into work today. I was listening to the radio. I heard an interview with Royals GM JJ Piccolo. He said the pitching is doing their job, and he said that maybe if there was a silver lining out of this tough stretch, is that these haven't really been a lot of blowout losses. These have been very close games because the pitching staff, starters, and you can also say the relievers have been keeping the Royals here in these games, keeping it within striking distance. But obviously everyone knows, Piccolo knows, Quattrero knows, the players know the offense needs to produce. I know after one of the games this weekend, Bobby Witt Jr., he spoke to the fact that he doesn't feel that the offense is doing their job. Bobby's batting over 300. He said he isn't doing his job. I mean, Bobby is hitting, but the rest of these guys need to step up.
But Bobby's hitting, but he's not hitting with runners in scoring position, just like everybody else. Yeah, exactly.
Got to get some ducks on the pond, as Rex Hudler would say. But obviously, there has been some movement. We talked about this a little bit yesterday on the show. Over the weekend, the Royals optioned MJ Melendez to AAA. He had been in the big leagues for 3 years. So not only is this a wake-up call for the rest of the Royals, for MJ, but it's a wake-up call for the rest of the Royals. Like, this is a guy that has been on the big league roster, that has become a major league veteran, and the Royals said the changes you made in the offseason, they don't seem to be working. You're not batting good enough. You got to go down to AAA and figure it out. So I think that's a little bit of a wake-up call, not just for MJ, but also for the rest of the team. Seems like there's going to be some easy teams coming up, are not as good as what they started with the season with. So the Royals, if they're going to turn it around, now is the time. We're going to see if that starts tonight against Colorado. Now, moving on to football, the Chiefs sent 2 guys to speak with the media today, JuJu Smith-Schuster and Creed Humphrey. I think we're going to start with Creed, some of his comments, because he's the highest paid center in all of football, and there is going to be some movement along the offensive line. We keep talking about with the Chiefs, so much about this team has to do with what they're going to do at the left tackle position. Last year they tried to have Kingsley Sua-Mataia fill that role. Now, yesterday, head coach Andy Reid confirmed that Kingsley's moving to left guard, and he'll be in a competition with Mike Caliendo. Now, Gabe, my question for you, Mike Caliendo used to play in college with the Chiefs' new left tackle, Jalen Moore, at Western Michigan. How do you think that impacts the battle with Kingsley there at left guard?
Well, I think that the left side of the offensive line was a struggle throughout last year, and I argued this with Jared, I argued this with Marlia and with Neil throughout last fall and last winter, that it didn't make sense personally to me to move an all-pro out of his position to get him to play at an average level at one position, and then you get average to below average level play at the position that said all-pro, Joe Thuney, was playing at left guard. And I think that people were commending Joe Thuney for what he was doing at left tackle as admirable and really good. And as such, because the play at left tackle had been so poor, it was something that people viewed as a positive. And yes, it was a positive, but his play at left tackle was not anything special. And the play at left guard, as a result of him leaving the situation there, was not very good from Mike Caliendo. In fact, it was, by Pro Football Focus grades, was below league average. So I don't believe that Mike Caliendo has any advantage in this competition if we're going to, as we've debated several times as to whether Brett Veach, Andy Reid, how much of a truth, half-truth, or nothing, no truth they're telling us in these media availabilities. But what Andy Reid said yesterday about Mike Caliendo and Kingsley competing for the left guard spot, I'll say that, yeah, they're competing, but they're probably competing with the assumption or the goal being to make last year's second-round pick a productive starter, and if you already whiffed on him being a productive starter at left tackle, to salvage a second-round value out of the pick, making him the starting left guard is kind of doing that. And so I think that has to be the goal.
Well, I think they just have to say it's a competition just because they're professionals. You can't tell Mike Caliendo, hey, buddy, like I know this Kingsley's got the job, and you got to let football. Sports is all about competition. You cannot run away from it in any facet of football, any facet of any sport. If you're scared of competition, get the heck out of here. You're not a winner. But Creed Humphrey today was very complimentary of Kingsley Suamataia. He said he's a guy that comes to the facility with the right mentality each day. He said he's a very athletic, a very smart kid. So it seems at least that he's very excited to play with him along there. But another interesting nugget that came out of that, the Creed Humphrey availability, is that he actually has a relationship with Jalen Moore from the 2021 Senior Bowl. He said that he was there, Trey Smith was there, Creed Humphrey was there, so the Chiefs have three of the top performers from that 2021 Senior Bowl all playing together. I think that's a little bit of a cool nugget. He also said he's very pumped up to have Trey Smith back, so it looks like this upcoming year, it looks like Kingsley could be a potential pretty solid starter, at least at left guard. Creed, obviously one of the best centers in the NFL, and then Trey Smith at right guard. The Chiefs, once again, along the interior. Gabe, what are your thoughts? Looks pretty strong.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things where if you're going to invest so heavily in the interior of the offensive line, which they've done with Creed being one of the highest paid centers, with Trey Smith, he's going to be one of the highest paid guards as long as he's on the franchise tag, and assuming that he gets inked to an extension at some point, either during this season, during this summer, or during
Brett
next
Veach
offseason.
said after the draft, that's a priority for them.
So we'll see how they work that out. But if you're going to do that, the best way to maximize that, and I think that one of the frustrations with the 2024 Chiefs team was that you had those two guys and you had Joe Thuney, so you had three incredible interior offensive linemen, and you didn't run the ball explosively at all, in large part because the Isaiah Pacheco injury, and just because you were just getting serviceable production out of it from Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine. And so I really think that as we get toward the draft wish list conversation here of this program, giving the Chiefs some explosiveness in the run game has to be a priority in this draft, and there's plenty of options to do so.
No, that certainly is something that has been lacking from the team. We'll get to that in a second. We'll quickly go to JuJu Smith-Schuster. One note I want to have on him, the Chiefs, a lot of guys have new haircuts this year. Patrick Mahomes cut his hair. JuJu Smith-Schuster came to today's media availability with purple hair. He says he's going to wear it through the summer. So if you see guys, purple hair, JuJu Smith-Schuster. JuJu right now is down in Texas working out with Patrick Mahomes. They're all doing their own dumb thing down there. He says Mahomes has his own facility, and that's kind of cool to see the compound that he has down there. So, Gabe, right now the Chiefs working virtually, but it seems like they're getting some work in also physically, at least. Patrick Mahomes leading some workouts down there in Texas. JuJu Smith-Schuster, though, back for another year with the Chiefs, re-signed one-year deal in March. What do you kind of think having him come back to the team? What will that do for Kansas City this year?
I think it's a good thing in the sense that the expectation isn't for him to be some huge producer in terms of receiving yards and receiving touchdowns and all those kinds of things. But as a veteran who, at this point of his career, you can say he's a winner. He's played for some very solid Pittsburgh Steelers teams. He's been on the Chiefs for a Super Bowl victory, for a Super Bowl run, to lose in it last year. And I think that what you can say about him is that for as much as, if you're getting into the social media stuff and the TikToks and all that kind of stuff that he was doing when he was a much younger player, for as much attention seeking and as many headlines or tweets and Instagram posts and TikToks and all those kinds of things, as much as that got attention, he's kind of grown up to be a really solid veteran presence and a guy who it seems like is really well liked in the locker room. And so I think that that's a good person to have in there, along with younger guys like Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and having Hollywood Brown in there as well. I think having veteran mentors to kind of guide those younger guys who are expected to produce at the level that JuJu was expected to produce when he was younger, that's always a really good thing to have, because I think that he can be super relatable to them, and I think that makes the Chiefs wide receiver room better.
Yeah, I think he's a great guy to have in that wide receiver room, especially for a lot of those reasons that you mentioned. Because speaking of JuJu, this is a guy that can look at some of the younger players, and he really can say, I've been there, I have done that. I was a top recruit in the country. I was a star at USC. I was a second-round pick. Like, he can walk the walk and talk the talk. And this year, though, he's back with the team for the whole offseason. Last year coming in the middle of the year, and he said that actually will make a big difference for him, maybe production-wise on the field, because he's building these relationships from the ground up, from day one, day zero, whatever you want to call it, with the coaches, with his new teammates. He's definitely excited for that. But JuJu coming up in a week is actually probably going to have to add a couple. He will actually have to add a couple new teammates with the NFL draft coming up. The Chiefs sitting number 31 overall in the first round. They have 4 picks in the top 100. I know General Manager Brett Veach has said they have needs along the O-line, the D-line, safety, wide receiver. Gabe, we were talking about this earlier. You kind of think that the Chiefs need to add an explosive threat to the running room. I know they don't kind of have a player like that on the roster, but so say they were to add a speedy threat in the backfield. What would that do? I don't know when the last time the Chiefs maybe had a speed threat out of the backfield. And then what do you think that'll do for the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that young Kareem Hunt was faster, but even he wasn't some incredible speed running back. If you think back in years past, it's not something that the Chiefs have really had since like a Jamal Charles. Yeah. Even Damian Williams, when he was the main running back for the Chiefs, you would say the Chiefs weren't trying to necessarily like pound the rock for 18, 20 carries a game. He was, if anything, he was being super effective in the screen game and all those kinds of things. But I would argue part of the reason that the Chiefs didn't have so much success in the screen game last year is because their running back options weren't explosive in that area as well. Like one of the things that made them so incredible in 2022 and 2023 when he was healthy was Jerick McKinnon. And that's somebody who wasn't some incredible runner of the football, even though he was a running back. But he had that stretch of games in 2022 where it was like 6 or 7 consecutive games where he caught a touchdown. And I think that having successful passing options or pass catching options out of the backfield is so important. And so as you look at the college football running back prospects, look down the list. Like, yes, Ashton Genty is going to go top 10,
he's good.
Fringe top 5 maybe on Thursday night. Omar, and he's from Boise State. He was a Heisman contender. Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. He's getting that buzz of like maybe the Broncos at 20 are going to pick him. Maybe he's there around 31. Ohio State, we just saw them with Will Howard, and they have 2 guys, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, and then you've got, if you watched the Big 12 this year, pick almost any school. And you can have Devin Neal at KU. You've got DJ Giddens at K-State. You've got
Cam
Skattebo at Arizona State. I would say, even as the biggest Cam Skattebo believer, he's not a fit for the Chiefs because he's not a speed guy, and he's not an explosive second. He would be like drafting a younger version of Kareem Hunt, and which maybe that's something that they're interested in. But then even throughout the league, one of the other Big 12 guys that I think fits what the Chiefs want to do maybe is R.J. Harvey from UCF, because you could use him. Brett Veach mentioned this. Kick, punt return, wanting to have guys who can do that to complement Nico Remigio. I think that's even more important because you're not going to have McCole Hardman on the roster this year. So looking into that, I could see somebody way down the list who's not even in like top 10s of running back boards is Jaden Blue from Texas, and he was so good as a receiver for Texas and so good, so explosive as a kick returner. So maybe he's a guy that the Chiefs are interested in. So I don't know. I'm genuinely, I've said this several times on this show, I don't have a preference or somebody who I'm banging my fist on the table for the Chiefs to pick a running back. I just want them to pick one, and I'm very excited to see which one it is.
Yeah, Brett Veach has said that the draft is very deep at running back and at defensive end. And just looking at some of these running back names, I saw there was a report actually the University of Miami running back Damian Martinez came to the Chiefs for a top 30 visit. But a little bit surprising for me because just following the Canes all season long in Damian's career, not exactly a speed back. He's huge. He's a 6 foot 225 running back that's going to run right through you. So that seems maybe if that's the way, if that's a player they're bringing in, maybe that's kind of what they're looking at the running back position. But I think it would be interesting to add speed back there in the backfield because we know the Chiefs have threat. Xavier Worthy, fast players on the outside. But you got speed in different parts of the field. It can really affect the game, and I don't know what linebacker can cover a fast running back. I mean, there are some freak show linebackers out there, but it just creates a different threat. I think for me, though, my wish list is maybe something that's not something we're really talking about too much with the Chiefs, but I'd like to see maybe a big-bodied receiver. Maybe that could be a tight end or a tall wideout, because we see some of the guys that the Chiefs have. But, I mean, Travis Kelce, this is, in all honesty, probably his last year. I'd be shocked if he comes back for one more year after this. And I know the Chiefs have invested. They signed Noah Gray to an extension. Last year they drafted Wiley in the draft. But I think where 31 is, there could be some game-changing tight ends. There could be Mason Taylor from LSU. There could be Elijah Arroyo from Miami. There could be some guys that maybe you get Travis Kelce on the field with one of those guys. That's a matchup problem for a defense. And Gabe, what would you think if they were to add maybe a big-bodied receiver or another tight end?
I think it would make sense, especially you lose DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason. JuJu is not necessarily super big-bodied, but he's not a speed guy. But the rest of your receivers, Hollywood, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, aren't guys who are winning on contested catches. We've seen Worthy actually do it a couple times, but it's not something that if you're the Chiefs, you're drawing up looks to get contested catch throws toward 5'11", 5'10" Xavier Worthy. So I think that Alec Iomanor from Stanford is one of those guys who stands out. He's a big body guy. Another Big 12 name that I would mention, Jaden Higgins from Iowa State, is one of those guys who could be in there. I've seen that the Chiefs, in terms of having local visits, I don't know if they're going to invest something high in the draft at wide receiver, but if they're in like the 5th, 6th round, I know that they don't have a 5th or 6th round pick. So if they're in the 7th round where they have several picks, they've had a guy like Quentin Skinner from KU in for a visit, and he's a guy who can win in contested catches. So we'll see. I think that the Chiefs did so much roster building throughout the offseason of just plugging holes, re-signing Charles Menahue, re-signing JuJu, re-signing other individuals, Kareem Hunt and running back. So they don't have anything that stands out where it's like super obvious of what they're going to do on Thursday night, and thus you could tell me that Brett Veach does different things with his first, second, 2/3, and then the 4th round pick. He could pick in different orders of positions, and I would believe you.
Yeah, I just think the good news for the Chiefs is, and I really feel, just as you're saying there, they have established their floor. They know who the core is who's going to be next year. They know who the majority of their playmakers and who their contributors are going to be. Now it's all about finding just those little extra pieces that they can. Maybe there's a good player at 31. The Chiefs have 4 picks in the top 100, just those little extra pieces that could push them over the top, maybe a safety, another corner. We're going to have to see what the Chiefs do there. As we just said, 4 picks in the top 100, 8 total in the draft. It all starts on Thursday. We're going to have you covered here every step of the way here on KCTV5. 2 more topics here today, going from the gridiron to the pitch. Sporting KC, 2-1 under Kerry Zavagnin. Gabe, the team just looks a lot different. I mean, before Kerry became the interim head coach, when they're still under Peter Vermees, they were really struggling to score goals. The team, it just looked like they weren't playing with a lot of energy. As soon as they got behind in the game, kind of put their heads down. The players have even talked about that. But here we go. 5-goal explosion over the weekend at San Jose. 2 of them scored by your former high school schoolmate, Daniel Shallowy of Blue Valley Northwest fame. Big question for you. Did you ever see Daniel in high school? What was he like there? I assume he was a star.
He was a senior when I was a freshman. He was not allowed to play on the soccer team because he was
a foreign exchange student.
Because he was not because he was a foreign exchange student, but because he was already playing for, I think, Sporting's
the homegrown
team. And so I think he actually, this tells you about the kind of guy that Daniel is. He was a manager on the soccer team, so he was still around the program and doing that. But very cool to see him win MLS Player of the Match Day for Saturday. You go through the list of guys who have had a 4-goal contribution of 2 goals, 2 assists. Hasn't happened a lot in Sporting history, despite the fact that they've had several years of very great play from the team. And shockingly,
it's been a couple of years since someone had done it, and the guy that's and Preki. It's like 3 guys in Preki, so all-time greats.
It's been a while since since Sporting has scored 5 goals
7 years in a
match. So Very impressive. And that was the thing that when Marlia asked about the coaching change and whether it did anything, I said I'm not overreacting, but I would just ideally like to see more goals being scored. And more goals are being scored now, so they're at least opening things up and playing a little bit more of a fun style of play, even if it's not going to result in them skyrocketing up the MLS standings.
Well, I think so much about sports is just being in the right mental headspace when you go to the field of competition or the field of play. And I think before, maybe Sporting really did not have the belief. Just hearing some of the things that, especially Shallowy said after Saturday's match, that he's like in the past, like we just we had our heads down, like when things happened, like it wasn't going good, and just to see the relief on their faces, the smiles that they have. I know they're professional athletes, but they're not going to perform their best if they're down in the dumps, if they're not feeling it. I mean, granted, they are professionals, but they look at the joy they play with now and the goals that are happening. It's just a breath of fresh air for Sporting Kansas City. I know they made this move because they're trying to salvage the season, and it looks like they might be turning the tide, and there's a little bit of time left, so we'll see what there's a lot of time left, so we'll see if they can make a push for the playoffs. Now, one team that is in the playoffs right now is your Kansas City Mavericks. They are tied the series 1-1 against the Tulsa Oilers. Now, Gabe, the Mavericks are the top seed in the Western Conference, and on Friday they lost. Saturday, they're down 2-1, so they're about to go in a 2-0 series hold at Tulsa. And in the final 75 seconds of the game, the Mavericks come up clutch. They score a goal, send it to overtime, and in the extra period, get the victory. So my question here is going down to Tulsa. Tulsa has 3 games down there. Do you think the Mavericks are going to get a win and force it back to Kansas City?
Yeah, I do. I think that what I've taken away from playoff hockey, whether it's at this level or whether it's at the NHL level, because last night I got home from work around 11:30, opened up the ESPN app and saw, Colorado's playing Dallas and they're in overtime. Of course I'm going to watch playoff overtime hockey, and that is always kind of the dice roll of who gets a bounce, who makes a play, and it doesn't always go the way of the home team because if anything, oftentimes fans are just sitting there on pins and needles hoping things go well. They can't necessarily impact anything. There's only so much that yelling and screaming is going to do in hockey. And so I think that the Mavericks can go down there and steal a game, get back here, guarantee a Game 6 at Cable Dahmer Arena, and get it done. So I know that you would say that they haven't played great through the first 2 games of the series, but getting a split is ideal and better than being down 2-0. And to the point of what I was watching last night in Avalanche Stars, Colorado was up 1-0 in the series, should have probably won Game 2. They lose in overtime, and now you'd say it's anybody's series because if you get a hot goaltender, if you have a couple crazy bounces go your way, it's all yours.
Well, this Tulsa team, they got some bad blood with the Mavericks. The Mavericks beat them last year in the first round of the playoffs, and just talking to some of the guys around the Mavericks, this Tulsa Oilers team was built to beat the Mavericks. This is the only thing Tulsa, well, I'm sure they want to win the Kelly Cup, but they really want to beat the KC Mavericks. And Tato had, after Saturday's game, I think this guy is he is such a good head coach. There is so much that coaches from all sports can learn from Tato had. But he talked about the belief that this team, and he's like, the belief that we have that we can win is not based on things that we think we can do. He said, we have been collecting evidence all season long for reasons as to why we can win the Kelly Cup, as to why we're the best team in the ECHL. And he said they got a big piece of evidence on Saturday night when the team showed the resolve to come back in regulation, tie it up, and win it in overtime. So tonight, puck drops at 7:05 down there in Tulsa at the BOK Center. We're going to have an update on that game coming up tonight at 10. But, Gabe, I think that wraps us up today. You got anything else you want to add?
Nope, just looking forward to Thursday.
The NFL
draft. Plenty of draft coverage.
31 overall. Everyone's wondering what's going to go on. When it happens, we'll tell you who the Chiefs picked right here on KCTV5. All right, that's it for today. Thanks, and have a good one, guys.